This is the BBC Home Service. Today is the official birthday of Her Majesty the Queen, and in a few minutes she will ride on to Horse Guards Parade for the ceremony of Trooping the Colour. Looking down on Horse Guards Parade is Robert Hudson, and we take you to join him there.
And what a stage it makes for this parade of music and colour and military precision which we're about to see and hear. We look out from our position in the Horse Guards building, itself 200 years old, onto a massive rectangle some 200 yards in length and 100 yards in width, flanked on the right by the Admiralty buildings and on the left by the rear gardens of numbers 10 and 11 Downing Street. Downing Street itself undergoing some reconstruction at the moment, so there's quite a lot of scaffolding about. And to our front we see the green grass and the green leafy trees of St. James's Park, with Buckingham Palace away in the distance. And along two sides of the rectangle, making, as it were, a brilliant red border, are drawn up the 24 officers and some 560 other ranks of the Scots, Irish and Coldstream Guards. They're drawn up, as is the custom on this parade, in 8 guards, each of 3 officers and 70 other ranks. 5 of these guards are to our front, that's to say with their backs to the park and the Guards Memorial. The other 3 to our right, in front of the Admiralty buildings. And in front of one of these 3 guards to our right, in fact number 7 guard, is the colour to be trooped today, that of the 2nd Battalion, the Scots Guards, and it's held at the moment proudly by a colour sergeant. And to complete the picture, away to our left, like a huge square quilt of colour, stand 360 strong, the massed bands, drums and pipes of the Brigade of Guards, with the blue tunics and the Royal Stuart kilts of the pipers of the Scots Guards, prominent today as this is very much a Scottish occasion. And in the centre, quite still, mounted on a bay, is the officer in command of the parade, Colonel the Earl Cathcart, DSO-MC, Scots Guards, field officer in brigade waiting, holder of which office always commands the Queen's birthday parade, of which, incidentally, the actual ceremony of trooping the colour is only a part, although an important part. Now, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, has arrived a few moments ago in a carriage procession. She was wearing a lovely powder blue dress and hat, and she had with her Princess Anne, obviously enjoying the occasion to the full. And now we just see the head of the royal procession approaching down the Mall. It's led by the Brigade Major of the Household Brigade, Major J.F.D. Johnston, on a white horse. Behind him 4 troopers of the Life Guards, breastplates and helmets gleaming. Then, in a gap of 50 yards, as the guards are brought to attention in front of us, come the mounted band of the Life Guards. Guards shoulder arms. The Life Guards band, not playing at the moment, in frock coats of gold lace, the royal cipher in red velvet, and velvet jockey-type caps, like something out of a fairy tale, as they come down the slight incline of the approach road onto the Horse Guards Parade. And then will follow the 1st and 2nd divisions of the Sovereign's escorts, the Life Guards and the Blues. The mounted band of the Life Guards now just at the bottom of the approach road and moving from right to left across our front. They will halt in front of the massive white Guards Memorial, which is a prominent feature of the line of front from left to right ahead of us. Following the Sovereign's escort will come Her Majesty the Queen. This, of course, is the official birthday of Her Majesty, not her actual birthday. But it is, strangely enough, the actual birthday of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh. he is 40 today. So by coincidence, it's a parade, as it were, to mark 2 birthdays. Behind Her Majesty the Queen rides, as we see now, coming down the Mall and turning down the approach road onto the Horse Guards Parade, His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Royal Highness the Duke of Gloucester, and a long retinue which includes the colonels of all the foot guards, amongst them Field Marshal Earl Alexander of Tunis, who is colonel of the Irish Guards, Major General Burns, commanding the Household Brigade, and the holders of the ancient offices of Gold Stick and Silver Stick in waiting, the personal bodyguard of the Queen. And as the clock above us strikes 11, the 1st Division of the Sovereign's Escort comes down the road and moves from right to left across our front to halt and turn left behind the 5 guards drawn up in front of us. They move very slowly in absolute precision. Black horses, gleaming helmets, under, I'm afraid, rather a cloudy sky. It isn't very sunny. We've had, as you know, a threat of rain. The forecast is not very good, but luckily it's held off long enough, and we hope it will hold off for the whole of the parade. Therefore, the sky is a trifle overcast, and as I look up now, I can't see any blue about, but we just keep our fingers crossed and hope that this magnificent occasion, colour and sound, will go off without being spoilt, as it would be, by heavy rain. Now the 2nd Division of the Sovereign's Escort comes down the approach road, and we get our first glimpse of Her Majesty the Queen, riding side saddle on the police horse Imperial, wearing the uniform of Colonel-in-Chief of the Scots Guards, with tricorn cap and scarlet uniform. How graceful she looks on this lovely horse, a delicate yet regal figure. It comes down very slowly to the bottom of the road, turns to the left. Behind her, Prince Philip and the Duke of Gloucester. Prince Philip in the uniform of the Colonel of the Welsh Guards, and the Duke of Gloucester, Colonel of the Scots Guards. And as they pass now behind the rear rank of the guards drawn up to our right, they salute the collar as they pass behind it. And the rest of the royal mounted procession follows slowly behind. I should think in all about 25 horses. And then the clip-clop of the hooves that you hear as the 3rd and 4th Divisions of the Sovereign's Escort, as they come clattering down the road and join their comrades of the 1st and 2nd Division and turn into line. It's just like the nursery come to life. Now we wait in a moment as Her Majesty the Queen approaches the saluting base between the statues of Lords Wolsey and Lord Roberts. We shall hear the officer commanding the parade, Lord Cathcart, in a moment or two order the royal salute, which of course will be followed by the national anthem. The Guards order arms, and the first part of this parade begins. It consists of an inspection by Her Majesty the Queen of the whole of the Brigade of Guards on parade and of the Sovereign's escort. As the band plays in slow time, appropriately enough, the Scottish melodies, the Queen's procession moves out from the saluting base beneath us, half left across the parade ground to the right of the line, to the number 1 guard, which in fact today is known as the Escort for the colour. It's also the Queen's Guard for the day, and will play, as you will hear, a leading role in this birthday parade. The Brigade Major leads the parade, followed by the 4 troopers, the Queen, Prince Philip and the Duke of Gloucester. She comes up to the Escort for the colour, and as she rides down the front rank, she will find that the next 3 guards are also provided by the Scots Guards. Number 5 Guard by the Coldstream Guards, and number 6, 7, and 8 Guards by the Irish Guards. They're drawn, in fact, from the Guards battalions available in the London area at the time. There are 4 battalions away at the moment in Africa and Germany, so that the Welsh Guards and the Grenadiers are not represented today on parade. And as Her Majesty rides down the front rank now, her eye will take in the brilliant scarlet tunics, the black bearskins, the white belts, the blue trousers with the red piping, the collar badges, the thistle for the Scots, the shamrock for the Irish, the Garter Star for the Coldstream. And she will see the different settings of the buttons, in 3s for the Scots, in pairs for the Coldstream, and in 4s for the Irish. The mass bands change to the quick march, the Moray Firth, and the inspection of the front rank has been completed. It turns and goes back behind the rear rank, Her Majesty saluting the colour as she passes. She will go right down the back of the rear ranks of the Guards, who are drawn up, of course, in 2 ranks. Turn to the left, go down the rear of the 5 Guards who flank the far side of the parade ground, and also at the same time pass the front of the Sovereign's escort. It consists of 7 officers and 103 other ranks, and they are now, as I told you, drawn up in front of the Guards Memorial, half from the Life Guards, raised way back in 1659, and half from the Royal Horse Guards, the Blues, who became part of the Household Cavalry in 1820. right flank of the escort guard back to the sleeping base. And the guards are stood at ease by the officer commanding. The next order you will hear will be the one single word, troop. And at that point, one can say that the actual trooping ceremony begins. Its origins date back to the 18th century, when before battle, the colours were carried along the ranks so that all could recognize them. But before that, before the actual trooping itself, as a preliminary to that, the mass bands from all the 5 guard regiments will march and countermarch slow and quick time. This is one of the highlights of the parade, and I'm sure you'd like to listen to the music uninterrupted by my commentary. You might remember, if you do, the motto of the Brigade of Guards, Quinque Juncta in Unum, 5 joined in one. For this, as the mass bands march across this magnificent parade ground in fact, was never more true. And now Her Majesty has got back into position at the saluting base, and the rest of the mounted royal procession that followed her round on the inspection form up behind. And in a moment, when they're in position, you will hear the mass band starting to march from left to right and then countermarch in slow time, playing the slow march Les Huguenots. Imagine the scarlet and blue tunics, saffron kilts, the plaid bonnets, gleaming in the sun, and no bugles, remember, guards don't get bugles. The drum majors richly caparisoned their sticks as they then throw them in the air, marching left to right across the parade. A chilly day there on Horse Guards Parade, with a scene of glittering colour in front of Her Majesty the Queen. The slow march, Les Huguenots. the mass bands, having marched to the right and counter-marched to the left, have halted 10 paces in front of the colour, and they will now march in quick time, playing the quick march Scottish emblem. And as they march across from right to left, one drummer of the 2nd Battalion, the Scots Guards, will peel off and station himself on the right of the escort for the colour. And then he will play the drummer's call as soon as the mass bands halt and stop playing. Now this solitary drummer beats the drummer's call, and our attention is focused on the escort for the colour. That, if you remember, is the number 1 guard on the right of the line, or to the left as we look out. It consists of 3 officers and 70 other ranks, and will now, from now on, take a prominent part in the actual trooping of the colour. The drummer, having beaten the drummer's call, marches in solitary state now back across the parade ground to rejoin the mass bands, who have just given us an absolutely breathtaking display of marching and counter-marching. It was sheer perfection, a moving square of colour and sound which could not possibly have been bettered. Now the escort for the colour, shoulder arms. Close order march. And the escort for the colour come marching forward onto the parade ground to left wheel in the centre and march up to halt in front of the colour. The music, I hardly need to tell you, the British Grenadiers. escort for the colour has wheeled left into line. The lieutenant of the escort 3 paces in front of the ensign, the second lieutenant, who in a moment or two will become the central figure of the parade as he holds the colour as it is trooped. The mass bands march away to the top of the parade ground to leave the way clear for the escort for the colour now, 2 lines of 35 men marching across to halt 20 paces in front of the colour. Now the escort for the colour take up their dressing by the right. And in a moment, Sergeant Major Fitzgerald, with his sword drawn, this is the only occasion in the whole year on which a Sergeant Major of the Guards draws his sword. He will come forward and take the colour from the colour sergeant. The rest of the Guards are brought to attention. They shoulder arms. The Sergeant Major, from his position at the rear of the escort, marches round the left flank, sword held in front of him. Comes in front of the lieutenant of the escort, marches up to the sergeant holding the colour. Salutes the colour, takes it with his left hand from the colour sergeant, takes a pace to the rear, turns about and marches up to the ensign, Second Lieutenant Saunders, who now places the colour in his colour belt. In a moment, the lieutenant of the escort will give the order, "Present arms," and you will hear once again the national anthem played. Now comes the actual trooping ceremony itself. During it, the mass bands will play the Grenadier March. In the 18th century, this ceremony became a daily one, performed by the regiment finding the guard duties at the mounting of the King's Guard. But once a year, on the King's official birthday, the duties were shared by the whole Brigade of Guards. And so it has come that on the official birthday parade, the whole Brigade of Guards who are available take part. Now the escort to the colour, you'll notice I say to the colour, because now that the colour is being trooped, they are not the escort for the colour, but they are the escort to the colour. They move forward in line before turning right, marching in slow time to the end of the line of the other guards, then turning left about and passing between their ranks. That is to say, the ensign of the colour himself marches in front of the front rank. The front rank of the escort marches between the 2 ranks of the guards, and the rear rank of the escort behind the rear rank of the guard. So it is as if a thread of red tape was being run through the lines of guardsmen. The colour itself, which is being trooped today, was presented to the 2nd Battalion, the Scots Guards, by His Royal Highness the Duke of Gloucester in 1951. Now the trooping begins. The Guards have presented arms, and the deep red colour trimmed with gold, with the Union Jack in the top left-hand corner, and bearing battle honours from Namur in 1695, Peninsula, Waterloo, the Somme, to North Africa and Italy in 1945, starts to be trooped through the ranks of the Guards. The ensign, 2nd Lieutenant Saunders, a solitary and conspicuous figure, has turned the right angle, formed by the 3 Guards to our right and the 5 Guards to our left, and is trooping the colour opposite at the moment, number 4 Guard. How proud the Scots Guards must be today to troop their colour in front of Her Majesty. Next year, this 2nd Battalion goes to Kenya for 3 years. It was raised in 1642 by King Charles I, and this year, in fact, is the 300th anniversary of garrison duties by the Scots Guards at Edinburgh Castle. The 2nd Battalion won great glory at Waterloo by holding Hougoumont Farm, although they were outnumbered 15-1 by the French. The Scots Guards have won 11 Victoria Crosses, and today the colour of their 2nd Battalion is now at this moment being trooped precisely in front of Her Majesty the Queen as 2nd Lieutenant Saunders, bearing it proudly, passes exactly in front of the saluting base. Now the solemn moment of the actual trooping is over, and the escort to the colour has resumed its original position on the right of the line of guards. It takes up its dressing. As the colour was trooped, one felt a quietening among the crowd sitting in the stands to our right and our left, and thronging beneath the green trees of St. James's Park. and perhaps the children who were poking their faces beneath the policeman's legs to try and get a better view were quiet just for a moment, because this was the core of the whole parade. But now, in a moment, all will be life and colour and movement again. Because we must look ahead. In a moment we shall see the march past of the Brigade of Guards in slow and quick time. And in order to do that, they will form up in column. 16 lines of 35 men will in fact march past Her Majesty. And the commands, in order to get the parade into that alignment, are at the moment being given by Lord Cathcart, a solitary figure in the centre of the Horse Guards parade. As the bells of Westminster Abbey ring out on the Queen's official birthday, the Guards about to move into column. At the start of the march past, which will be at first in slow time, you will hear the mass bands playing, as it were, a neutral march, not one associated with any particular Guards regiment. It is in fact called a state procession. And then, as the appropriate Guards come up to the saluting base, you will hear the music change. And as the Scots Guards go past, they will play the regimental slow march of the Scots Guards, Garb of Old Gaul, and of the Coldstream Guards, Slow March from Figaro, and of the Irish Guards, Let Erin Remember. Now the 8 Guards are almost ready to move off. They are facing from right to left the far side of the parade ground. At their head will be, as they march past, Lord Cathcart, the field officer in brigade waiting. The escort for the colour will lead, and the colour will be in front of the escort for the quick march. And behind the escort for this first slow march. The bands play a state procession. Bands perform the most intricate maneuver of right wheeling in the center of the parade ground. Difficult, you may imagine, with a band 300 strong and playing all the time. They do it quite perfectly. And the Guards themselves have now left wheeled at the far corner of the parade ground, and the escort to the colour, with the colour itself in the charge of the ensign, flanked by 2 sergeant majors and the regimental sergeant major following in its rear. So there are 16 lines, as thin and as straight as a red pencil, marching in slow time up towards the saluting base. And you'll hear, as I said, the mass bands change into the regimental slow march of the Scots Guards as the escort to the colour approaches Her Majesty the Queen. Carrying the colour in front of the escort and dipping it in salute, the escort to the colour marches past Her Majesty in slow time, in perfect, absolutely perfect precision. 70 men, 35 in each rank, as if tied together by string. Left, right, left, right. A beautiful display of marching as the number 2 guard comes up in front of Her Majesty. Now the Coldstream Guards, supplying the number 5 guard today. it's Ireland's turn. Let Erin remember, the Irish Guards. The Irish Guards go by, perhaps it wouldn't be inappropriate to remember that these masters of the ceremonial drill are also some of the finest fighters in the British Army. Their deeds go back over many wars. Their gallantry is legend. Their drill today brings almost a lump to the throat. It is magnificent in its splendor and simplicity, and in its discipline and training, and in its bearing. Now the Guards have wheeled to the left at the right-hand corner of the parade ground, and the escort for the colour is marched up the right-hand side, wheeled left again, and is marking time, preparatory to moving across our line of sight from right to left. And the next stage of the parade will be the march past in quick time. And as the Guards move up to the saluting base, you will hear, again a neutral, as it were, march, the birdcage walk, before the mass bands change into the regimental quick marches, Highland Laddie for the Scots Guards, Millenolo for the Coldstream Guards, and St. Patrick's Day for the Irish. Now birdcage walk and the quick march past, very much more difficult to perform. The march past in slow time was brilliantly executed, the lines almost perfectly straight. Now the very much more difficult maneuver of the march past in quick time, where the lines, if you're not very, very careful, are apt to wave a little bit and must be corrected oh so very slowly. The Guards have marched then from right to left across our front. The escort guard is left wheeling in the top left-hand corner of the parade ground and is just about to march down the left-hand side in front of the big stand of spectators, gay with summer dresses there, and turn left in the bottom left-hand corner and march past Her Majesty for the second time. Scots Guards approach, the pipes and drums occupy the front two ranks of the mass bands as they prepare to play the regimental quick march of the Scots Guards, Highland Laddie. Well-nigh perfect line by the Scots Guards, the escort to the colour, with the colour itself now at the rear. Past the saluting base now, followed by the number 2 guard, also from the Scots Guards. Now as the Scots Guards go by and the Coldstream Guards come up, the front two ranks of pipers stop playing, turn right and left and march to the rear of the mass bands. Fine line from the Coldstream Guards with the red plumes in their bearskins, and here come the Irish with St. Patrick's Day, the blue plumes standing out clearly in their bearskins. All 8 guards have marched past, and it would be invidious to compare them. All the lines, I think, were, by any standards, quite magnificently straight. Thin red pencils, it looked as if the men were moving absolutely as one. And now they march round the Horse Guards parade to take up their original positions. Marching now from right to left, still in perfect dressing and absolute precision. The escort for the colour just coming up to the centre of the parade ground, with the colour still borne by the ensign in the rear. They march past the Sovereign's escort of the Household Cavalry, who will in a moment take the centre of the stage. Their lovely black horses, absolutely still, just an occasional movement of a head, and their standard carried in front, with on their right the mounted band of the Life Guards. Now the guards mark time, and in a moment they will move back into their original positions in line, and they will follow the march past of the household cavalry. The orders being given by the officer commanding the parade, Lord Cathcart, the officers take up their positions in the front of the guards. Mass bands turn to the right and march away from right to left across the parade ground. Meanwhile, the stage is being taken by another band, the mounted band of the Life Guards, who have moved off from their position to the right of the Sovereign's escort, round the right flank of the escort to the colour, and are riding up the right-hand side of the parade ground before wheeling left into the centre to take up a position opposite the saluting base. The magnificent drum horses in front, the bandsmen in tunics of gold braid and the velvet jockey-type caps. And in a moment they'll play the regimental quick march of the 2nd Life Guards, men of Harlech. Mounted band takes up its position in the center of the parade ground, we get a close view of these fine drum horses, the brown, black and white, called Alexander the Great, and the brown and white, Hannibal. Not only do they have to bear the constant beating of the drums about their ears, but the drums, in fact, are at different weights, which must make things a little more awkward for them. Now the household cavalry has moved off to the right, up the left-hand side of the parade ground, and as they walk past, the band will play the regimental slow marches of the Life Guards and the Royal Horse Guards. The standard carried in front of them by Squadron Corporal Major Cawthorne, the glittering breastplates, very uncomfortable they are to wear, the magnificent helmets with the plumes of white horsehair for officers of the Life Guards and red yak's hair for officers of the Blues. And the horse furniture, as the technical name is, the white sheepskins of the Life Guards and the black sheepskins of the Blues. And all the guards present arms as the standard is carried by. Lifeguards go by, lines of 12 sleek black horses, magnificently turned out, and now come the blues. Bringing up the rear, 2 farriers carrying axes, whose unpleasant duty it was in wartime to dispatch wounded horses and cut off their hooves for identification purposes. And as they went by, one couldn't help comparing men and horses as keepers of dressing. I don't know who's the better. They were both magnificent. The horses themselves seemed to be entering into the spirit of the thing completely, and their dressing was wonderful. Now the next part of the parade will be the march past at the trot. And they change to the trot. These magnificent horses, all over 16 hands and at least 6 years old. All black except the greys of the trumpeters, all trained at the Army Remount Depot at Melton Mowbray. Many of them come from Ireland, and some were given, in fact, by Queen Juliana of the Netherlands. Now they go trotting round, they wheel to the left to the top of the parade ground and trot along the road from right to left before they wheel again to come round past the saluting place at the trot. As they march past at the trot, the bands will play the keel row. The moment they're coming down the left-hand side of the parade ground. A lovely sight. Black horses, white sheepskin saddlecloths, glistening breastplates and helmets in perfect line. So the blues go by for the second time, this time at the trot. And the march pasts are over. In fact, the household cavalry now move very quickly up the right-hand side of Horse Guards Parade, wheel left, and get back into their original positions. And as they do so, the band of the Life Guards moves off, wheels left, and follows them round. It's hard to say which are the finer, the Sovereign's Escort itself or the beautifully turned out mounted band with their glittering gold lace, red velvet, jockey caps, white horses. The black horses of the Sovereign's Escort now clattering into position, wheeling left in front of the Guards Memorial behind the long red line of guardsmen. And so the parade is nearing its end now. In a moment there'll be a final royal salute and then the national anthem. Guards order arms, close order march, and will now at the halt right form before marching off the parade ground back to Buckingham Palace. The formation which they will now adopt is slightly different. They will split, each of the 8 guards will split into 3 divisions, so that instead of 8 main contingents you can say that they're going to be 24. And it is in this formation that they march off Horse Guards Parade back down the Mall to Buckingham Palace, where Her Majesty takes a final salute. The orders which you can hear in the background are still being given by the field officer in brigade waiting, Lord Cathcart, who commands the parade from his bay horse standing in the center. The massed bands turn to the right and march towards us to take up their position for the march off. This is also the signal for the Sovereign's escort to move off up the approach road to Horse Guards Parade and follow their mounted band of the Life Guards in order to get ahead of the main Brigade of Guards procession, which will be led by the Queen. Now the Guards have split, as I said, into these 24 divisions. The escort for the colour is still on the right of the line and will lead the march back to Buckingham Palace. The colour held still by the ensign in front of their front rank. The massed bands are just down in front of me, facing left to right. In a moment, the officer commanding the parade, Lord Cathcart, will ride up to Her Majesty the Queen and request permission for the parade to march off. As he rides slowly up, the Sovereign's escort move up the approach road. I think if you listen carefully, you will hear Lord Cathcart's voice requesting permission from Her Majesty. Meanwhile, the bells ring merrily out. The rain has kept off. The crowds have seen a scintillating, colourful, and magical display. They're packed under the trees in St. James's Park, packed in the stands to right and left, themselves contributing a very reasonable splash of colour to match, well, or try to match, the splendour of the parade itself. Now the Sovereign's escort is almost in position on the slope of the approach road. A little sun has peeped through the clouds, and the backs of their breastplates glisten as the black horses move up into line. In a moment they will be quite still, and all will be ready for the officer commanding to request permission from Her Majesty to march off the parade. Lord Cathcart rides up now. Her Majesty inclines her head. Permission is given. Now the officer commanding will order, "To your duties by the left." Quick march. He rides back to the center of the parade ground. Just surveys the whole parade to make sure everything is in order before giving the order to march off. Mass bands play Pentland Hills. The parade marches off round the Horse Guards parade, and Her Majesty in a moment will place herself at the head of her guards, behind the mass bands and in front of the escort to the colour. Now Her Majesty rides out from the saluting base, a slight, graceful figure in her uniform of Colonel-in-Chief of the Scots Guards, brilliant scarlet riding side saddle, followed by Prince Philip and the Duke of Gloucester. Places herself behind the mass bands and in front of the guards, and they march away off Horse Guards parade past the Citadel building. And so the Queen's birthday parade is over for another year. That magical mixture of music and colour, pomp and pageantry, discipline and training that is so typical a slice of the life of London. And And as we say goodbye to you from Horse Guards Parade, we have a last glimpse of Her Majesty the Queen, leading her guards, a vivid stream of scarlet, off the parade ground, up the approach road, and soon, between the green plane trees of the Mall, back to Buckingham Palace.
The ceremony of trooping the colour was described by Robert Hudson. Our next programme in the Home Service, short programme of music by William Boyce, follows in a minute and a half.